Is this heaven? No, it's Iowa. Don't call it a comeback. Coach is on a hiring flurry after 64 days. Our coaching staff is rounding into shape. And I have to say, after experiencing, as many of you have, some existential angst about the process and who we were going to get, who we missed out on, I have to say this is, at least for Rutgers, a very solid hiring process. Is Coach Schiano turning into John Harbaugh? And I kind of think so, and I'll get to that, in a second. But coaching staff is rounding into shape. We hired Travis Johansen as our DC, but we also add Joe Woodley, who has been the coach at Drake 1 year, not ironically, unlike Travis, a 1-year head coach. And we hire Adam Cox, the defensive coordinator at Drake, who worked under Woodley. And Cox has a history of being a safeties coach, and Lord knows we need help at safety. It's probably the worst position group as far as productivity on the field this past year than any other. So Coach Sanders can use some help taking the next step and developing. And oddly, both Cox and Woodley worked with Travis Johansen. And it's kind of weird how this is all shaking out, because it's kind of shaping up like our quarterback room with a couple 4-star guys going to have to win their job. How is this new coaching staff going to shake out? Woodley at Grandview. This is unbelievable to me. 72-5 as the head coach, never losing a regular season game. That's preposterous. I don't care what conference that is. He was 8-4 this past year at Drake. And when we talked about Travis and his 6 years of success as a DC at Grandview, a lot of that has to do with Woodley and his impressive resume and running of the program. Talked about the 14-0 season and a natty for Grandview. A lot of that has to do with Woodley, even though Travis was a DC on that team, and we gave him a lot of credit in our last video. And it's odd to me that Woodley, his role is yet to be defined, some sort of defensive assistant, but why is he not the coordinator? And maybe it's just a matter of timing and how it all worked out. But it's just odd that Travis is the DC and Joe Woodley is not. But Woodley was a linebacker at Iowa State in 1999 to 2003 and a team captain. So like Travis, we see the Bill Belichick effect here. We know Belichick and Schiano and Rutgers were kind of close. Bill Belichick loved players who were captains. Like 2/3 of his team were like team captains at some point. And so we get that with our new coaching hires. Cox began as a graduate assistant at Central Michigan, 2018 and 19. He worked with the secondary and special teams. He spent 4 seasons at Iowa as a defensive assistant under Phil Parker. Now, we know our experience with Iowa. If there's anybody that loves to play ugly and play Steve Pickleball, but only on the football, grind you down, wear you down, get you to make mistakes and play ugly in a 16-13 kind of game, it's Iowa. and this is significant considering not only our struggles on defense, but our struggles with Iowa over the years. Even though they've had not great offenses, we've struggled mightily with them. In 2024, Cox coached safeties at Indiana State, ye of Larry Bird, before being elevated defensive coordinator and linebackers coach at Drake in 2025. And of course, we know Drake made it to the FCS playoffs, and Woodley's lone year at the helm with Cox as the DC. Ironically, they lose to Travis Johansen and South Dakota in a playoff game. But that being said, Drake allowed the third fewest points and yards per game in the Pioneer Football League. You know, as I said, this is an interesting dynamic. Hopefully we get better results than that other Drake defensive coordinator. And you know who that is? That is the one, the only Chris Ash, who I think was in late 98, 99, 2000, whatever it was. Chris Ash was a defensive coordinator for Drake. Complex situation. I love that we have successful head coaches and coordinators. Should Woodley be the DC? What's his role? How's that going to work out with Cox? How's it going to work out with Travis Johansen? I don't know. Hopefully can coach, can put it all together. In 2024, ESPN listed a list of 30 coaches who will define the next decade in college football. And Woodley was on that list along with Kirby Smart, Deion. I got thoughts on Deion. We won't get to that. But it will be Woodley's first opportunity in the Power Four. But he's churned out 60 all-conference players, 7 All-Americans, 6 conference players a year. And most interestingly, he's been an OC and a DC. So what is Greg Schiano up to? You know, I guess this will allow him to be the CEO and just run the football team. And, you know, he's an old school kind of guy. And although he will do all those things like recruiting and marketing and revenue generation, NIL and all that. But now I think he just wants head coaches of his position groups and offense and defense, not unlike John Harbaugh, whose offensive coordinators, I believe 7 out of 8 of his offensive coordinators have been head coaches, including just hiring Matt Nagy. And oh yeah, by the way, you get Greg Roman, an offensive coordinator, as your run game coordinator. So I think coach, and these guys watch what's going on. I'm not sure. They say the NFL is a copycat league. Not sure if Coach Schiano is following in the footsteps of watching trends going on in a local team in the New York Giants with John Harbaugh hiring experience and stability. And we've seen how stability with Kirk Shiraka and Flats kind of delivered the 2 best position groups on our team. So, obviously, we need help on defense and bringing these Drake guys together. Drake is in Iowa, in case you're not really familiar with Drake sports, although I think they've been good in basketball every now and again. Made the tournament. Defense needs help, and secondary help in particular was just absolutely horrendous. Hopefully, Kaj Sanders, 4-star recruit. High hopes for him. Hopefully, he can develop and take the next step and have coaches that can scheme and put guys in position to succeed. When you look back on last year, it was just the whole co-defensive coordinator with a young up-and-coming guy from a good program like James Madison and a retread that wasn't a very good retread in Rob Smith. Just was worse than even you could have imagined. So with all this experience now, and I see that as a combination of experience, uh, not young guys, but younger guys, and uh, stability that they bring. How's the salaries going to work out for all this? And that might tell us about the pecking order of how the defensive staff is going to shake out. Uh, Nonetheless, with these guys working up together at Drake, they all have familiarity with each other, and they joined Julian Campani and Charlie Noonan as the only two leftovers from the defensive staff. And coach is not, he wiped the slate clean, and if there was going to be a time that he needed to do that and that we needed to do that, it was this year, and it was with the defense. And so this staff, it's not sexy, it's not cutting edge. We're not getting it from Power 4 SEC, Big Ten programs, and not the hottest name and young coordinators that everybody's chasing after. But I have to feel it's solid. And when you look at where we are, and no, it's not NIL and money related. Actually, Politi did an article on Steve Peichel on how money won't make a difference. And I kind of believe that that's the case, although I don't think Steve Peichel is the dinosaur and terrible coach everybody thinks he is. It's just finding the right guys and the parts to fit together. We have 7 out of 10 guys that are new to the program. And you know what? At times they've been more respectable than we thought they were. 6 out of the last 7 games are winnable games on paper, but it's Rutgers, so you never know. They come away with 5 wins out of the last 7 against, the Penn State and Marylands of the world, and Minnesota, even though they had a big win against Michigan. And you're 14-17. You're essentially last year, even though you don't have 2 top 5 lottery picks. So being solid and bringing stability and just being average on defense. I think you look at Seattle and their Super Bowl win, and they had a dominant defense. New England's defense also really good. So despite an era of money being thrown around and being offensively focused, it's the defensive teams. So you look at the NFL, AFC playoffs, Chargers, Patriots, Broncos, and Seahawks. These were all the top defensive teams in the NFL in the playoffs. So if we can just find a coaching staff that's able to fit, like basketball, fit the guys with the schemes that you're running, and I don't want to say using smoke and mirrors, but we've seen that if you can get your technique down and be disciplined and find guys that you can play to their strengths, like we've seen with Indiana. I've talked about this ad nauseum. 8 starters, 0 stars, 1 4-star starter. And they kicked the crap out of Alabama and Oregon twice. So, and they beat Miami and the Natty, who, by the way, 2 years ago we beat. So it should not be beyond the realm of possibility for us to take that next step, and just through coaching, discipline, understanding what you have and how to use them, and putting guys in positions to win, and not being totally a slave to the way that you've done things, but be able to be flexible and adjust on the fly. We have enough talent. When you look at our recruiting classes, 38, 40, 42, whose ever rankings you listen to, that we have enough talent, at least out of high school, in addition to a portal class, which I kind of feel is underwhelming. But you never know how these things shake out. Coaching is everything. They say in the NFL, it's coaching quarterback. I think in college, that's a little less true because quarterbacks at 20, 21 years of age are not as developed as they might be as they become later on in their NFL careers. Nonetheless, there's no reason why we should not be a top half of the Big Ten program, and that's going to require our defense getting a lot better. And I think these hires, though not sexy, getting a bunch of Iowa guys, they could provide some stability. And, going forward, if they do well, they're still young enough to be able to use Rutgers as a stepping stone onto bigger and better things. Nonetheless, in the short term, after a long offseason of a lot of consternation, I think in a lot of ways, Coach Schiano has saved the offseason by getting some solid guys. So we'll see how this all shakes out. We'll see what other position coaches hirings are coming up soon. The Arctic blast seems to be over. This week, I think we're getting back to normal temperatures for this time around year. In that 40, 42 degree range, which is kind of normal. So I'm looking forward to walking outside and not freezing my ass off. Nonetheless, everybody have a great week, and we'll see you the next time.